Welcome to the third lecture on management and entrepreneurship for IT industries. In today's class, we are going to discuss about levels of management and evolution of management. At the end of this lecture, we have a better understanding of the different levels that are used in the management and the management development approaches. The contents covered in the last lecture are the functional areas of management. The functional areas of management include production, marketing, finance and accounting, and personnel. According to Henry Mintzberg, the roles of the management can be categorized into three parts: the interpersonal roles, information roles, and decision roles. In the interpersonal roles, there are figurehead, leader, and liaison. In informational roles, there is a monitor, disseminator, and spokesperson. In the decision roles, we have entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and the negotiator. Next, we discussed about the different skills needed by the managers. So, the different skills needed are technical, interpersonal, conceptual skills. So, technical skills are needed at the lower levels, and interpersonal or human relation skills are needed at the middle level, and the conceptual skills are needed at the top level of the management. So let us start the discussion about the levels of the management. So the management, the different levels can be classified as top, middle, and lower. The people in organization are arranged in an hierarchy, and they all have the relationship of superior and subordinate. Every manager in an organization performs all five management functions, that is planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. The relative importance of these functions varies along the managerial levels. According to the management expert EFL Breach, he has classified the management levels into three categories, that is top, middle, and lower level. The top management consists of board of directors, CEOs or managing director. The top management is the ultimate source of authority, and it manages goals and policies for an enterprise. It devotes more time on planning and coordinating functions. The middle management consists of department heads, divisional heads, and section heads. The lower management, the lower level consists of the foremen, supervisors, and senior supervisors. Let us make a detailed study on these levels. The top level management devotes more time on planning and organizing and coordinating functions. The functions of top management are: it determines objective of the organization. They relate to profit, business growth, survival, prestige, competitive pricing, marketing methods. And the top level management is also responsible for framing the policy. They frame the policies and check out plans to carry out the objectives and policies. Policies may relate to different aspects of the organization. The top management is also responsible for organizational framework, where the top management determines the organization structure for the purpose of executing plans. The top management assemble the resources, that is, it executes the plans, the resources of man, machine, material, money, which are to be assembled. Then the top management is responsible for controlling the operations in the organization. The top management controls the operations, their budget, cost, and statistical quality control and accounting device. Next, middle management. The middle management consists of departmental divisions or sectional heads and other executive officers attached to the department, and this department is responsible for implementing policies and plans decided by the management. The functions of the middle management include to execute various functions of organization so that top management gets enough time to look after their responsibilities. The middle management cooperate among themselves with the top management and the supervisor so that organization functions smoothly. The middle management must build company spirit where all are working to provide a product or service wanted by the consumer. Next, the supervisory management or the lower level management. The lower level management consists of senior supervisors. The executives at this level are in direct touch with workers and have to see the work is properly carried out. The effective implementation of the plans and policies, the quality of coordination, quality of output, and overall success of the organization very much depend on the hard labor, discipline, loyalty of the personnel at this level of management. The functions of supervisory level management or the supervisors are they need to issue order and instruction to the workers and to supervise and control their work, plan activities of the section, assign jobs to the workers, direct and guide the workers about work procedure. The supervisors also maintain good human relation and build a high group morale among the workers. Then next we discuss about the evolution of the management or how the management thought has been brought into the current state. The idea of the management field they started at the early 20th century when new industrial era began. Business organization had a stage shift from ownership towards to joint stock companies. Hence, the problems like insufficient system, inefficiency of labor, and discrepancy in wage payment. So, management has been recognized as a separate and important field of study. So, henceforth, that is subsequently, management has evolved as a specific discipline of study and practice. The evolution of management can be divided into two parts, that is early management approach and modern management approach. In early management approach there are three approaches: scientific management, administrative management, and bureaucracy. In modern management there are three approaches: quantitative approach, system approach, and contingency approach. Now let us start the study of early management approach. The first early management approach was the scientific management, which was designed by Frederick Taylor. Taylor is known as the father of scientific management and has laid down some of the principles of scientific management. The first is time and motion study. That is started time and motion study, under which each motion of the job was timed out with the help of stopwatch of doing job was found, and shorter and fewer motions were developed, and amongst these the best job was found, which replaced the old rule of thumb, knowledge of the worksman. Then differential payment. New payment plan called differential piecework was introduced, which was linked incentives with production. Under this plan, a worker received low piece rate if he produced the standard number of pieces and high rate if he surpassed the standard, which would motivate the workers to increase production. Then third was drastic reorganization of supervision or drastic reorganization and supervision, which introduced the two new concepts: separation of planning and doing the functional foremanship. Taylor suggested that the work should be planned by the foreman and not by the worker, and there should be as foreman as there are special functions involved in doing a job, and each of these foremen should give orders to the workers on this speciality. Then next was the scientific recruitment and training. Taylor emphasized the need for scientific selection and development of the worker. He says that management should develop and train every worker to bring out his best facility and enable him to do a higher, more interesting and more profitable class of work than he has done in past. And the last principle of the Taylor was intimate and friendly cooperation between the management and the workers. So Taylor argued that both management and workers should try to increase production rather than quarrel over profits, which would increase the profits to such an extent that labor and management would no longer have to compete for them and should show common interest in increasing productivity. Now, some of the contributions of the Taylor's general approach was, so he trained workers in standard method, then supported workers by planning and eliminating interruptions, then provided wage intensive to worker for increased output. The contributions of the scientific management are: it demonstrated the importance of compensation for the performance and initiated the careful study of tasks and demonstrated the importance of personnel and their training. The scientific selection of workers has made recognize that without ability and training a person cannot be expected to do job properly. The scientific management have to work design encourage the managers to do one best way of doing the job. Now there are some limitations which are associated with the scientific management are, according to the Taylor's belief that economic incentives are strong enough to motivate workers for increased production, it proved wrong, as there are other needs such as security, social needs, egoistic needs rather than financial needs. Taylor's time and motion study is not accepted as entirely scientific, as there is no best way of doing the same job by two individuals, as they may not have the same rhythm, attention and learning speed. There was a separation of planning and doing, the greater specialization inherent in the system, which tends to reduce the need for skill and greater monotony of the work. So with this, the second approach in the early management was the Henry Fayol's administrative management. So Henry Fayol is considered as the father of administrative principles. He was a French mining engineer which turned into leading industrialist and a successful manager. He provided a broad analytical framework of the process of administration. He delineated the management functions of planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating and controlling. Henry Fayol developed a set of 14 general principles which are famous as Fayol's 14 principles of management. So his managerial functions of planning, leading, organizing are routinely used in current organizations. The Fayol's 14 principles which are used as general guides to management process are: the first is division of work or the division of labor. So here the management process produce more and better work with the same effort as the various functions of management like planning, organizing, directing and controlling, and cannot be performed efficiently by a single proprietor or by a group of directors, which must be entrusted to specialists in the related fields. Then second is authority, which implies that manager should have the right to give orders and powers to exact obedience, and the manager also may exercise formal authority and also personal power. Then third is discipline, absolutely essential for smooth running of the business, and discipline means obedience of authority, observance of rules and rules of service and norms of performance, respect for agreement, sincere efforts of completing the given job, etc. Then unity of command. This principle requires that each employee should receive instruction about a particular work from one superior only if reported to more than one superior would result in confusion and conflict of instructions. Then unity of direction, which means that there should be complete identity between individual and organizational goals on the one hand and between department goals on the other hand, and both should not pull in different directions. Then sixth is subordination of individual interests to general interest. In a business concern, an individual is always interested in maximizing his own satisfaction through more money, recognition, status, etc. which is against the general interest, which lies in maximizing production, and hence there is a need to subordinate the individual interest to the general interest. Next, seventh is remuneration. Remuneration paid to the personnel of the firm should be fair and should be based on general business conditions such as cost of living, productivity of the concerned employees, and the capacity of the firm to pay, and the fair remuneration increases a worker's efficiency and morale and fosters good relation between them and management. Then eighth is centralization. The degree of centralization or decentralization of authority must be decided on the basis of nature of the circumstances, size of the undertaking, the type of activity, and the nature of organizational structure. Then scalar chain. The scalar chain means hierarchy of authority from the highest executive to the lowest ones for the purpose of communication, and states superior subordinate relationship and the authority of superiors in relation to subordinates at various levels, and the orders or the communication should pass through the proper channels of authority along the scalar chain. Next, order. Putting things in order needs effort, and the management should obtain orderliness in work through suitable organization of men and material, and the principle of right place for everything and for every man should be observed by the management, which requires the need for scientific selection of competent personnel. Next is equity, which means equality of fair treatment, which results from a combination of kindness and justice, and employees expect management to be equally just to everybody, which requires managers to be free from all prejudices, personal likes or dislikes. Then stability and tenure of staff, or you can say stability or tenure of personnel. It is necessary to motivate workers to do more and better work, and they should be assured security of job by management, which if not provided they have a fear of insecurity of job. Their morale will be low and they cannot give more and better work. The next 13th is initiative, which means that freedom to think out and execute a plan, which when provided to employees lead to innovation, which is the landmark of technological progress. Then last is esprit de corps, which means that the spirit which should be created by the management among the employees, and is possible only when all employees pull together as a team, and there is scope for realizing the objectives of the concern, and there should be harmony and unity among the staff, which is a great source of strength to the undertaking, which could be achieved through avoiding divide and rule motto and use of verbal communication and written communication to remove misunderstandings. The contributions of the administrative management says that the Fayol's principle met the widespread acceptance among writers on management and among managers and managing themselves. Drawing inspiration from Fayol, a new school of thought known as Management Process School came into existence. Some of the limitations of the administrative management are the Fayol's principle of specialization lead to the dysfunctional consequences like it results in the dissatisfaction amongst workers as it doesn't provide them the opportunity to use all their abilities. Then one of the findings in Fayol principle is that there is nothing in Fayol's writing to indicate which is proper one to apply. Fayol's principles are based on a few case studies and have not been tested empirically, and whenever tested have fallen like autumn leaves. The principles of Fayol, such as principle, specialization, chain of command, unity of direction, and span of control, result in the mechanistic organizational structures which are insensitive to employees' social and psychological needs. These principles, the Fayol's principles, are based on assumption that organizations are closed system, but in reality organizations are open system, and hence the rigid structures so created do not work well under stable conditions. Then the next approach in the early management is bureaucratic management, which was stated by Max Weber, who is considered as the father of bureaucracy. He made a study on various business and government organizations and distinguished three types of administrations, that is bureaucratic administrations, that is leader oriented, traditional oriented, and the bureaucratic oriented. So leader oriented is administration is one in which there is no delegation of management functions and all employees serve as loyal subjects of leaders. Then in traditional oriented, all managerial positions are handed down from generation to generation. And in bureaucratic oriented, it is based on persons demonstrated ability to hold the position, and no person can claim particular position because of loyalty or because the position has been traditionally held by members of family. The important features of bureaucratic management are, so it suggested the division of labors, which increases production by improving efficiency and saving time in changing over from one job to another. Then principles of hierarchy. Each lower officer is under the control and supervision of a higher one. So employee selection and promotion. Then impersonality, that is administrative acts, decisions and rules are recording in writing, so makes an organization independent of people, besides making people's understanding more accurate. So the different limitations of the bureaucratic management are, there is over conformity of rules, so employees stick to rule policy because they stick to the rule policy as they fear of being penalized of the violation of these rules, and therefore follow letter of law without going into its spirit. Then another limitation was buck passing. In situation where there are no rules, employees are afraid of taking decision independently and may be punished for wrong decisions, and hence therefore there is either shift decisions to there or postpone them, which results in increase of office work and leads to the Parkinson's disease. There is no right to appeal. The bureaucratic organization feel dissatisfied because they have no right to appeal. So it is a rigid structure. The precise description of roles and over conformity of roles make bureaucratic strategies rigid, which work well in stable environments but do not work well in today's organizational flexible structure, which require constant mentoring, collection of information, and changing of job descriptions and roles of the employees. Then coming to the modern management approach. In the modern management approach, there are three approaches: the quantitative approach, systems approach, and the contingency approach. The quantitative approach. This approach was referred as the management science approach. This approach was evolved during the Second World War, when USA and UK were frantically trying to find solution to a number of new complex problems in warfares. The quantitative management approach is characterized by use of the mathematics, statistics, and other quantitative techniques for management, decision making, and problem solving. So the scientists of different disciplines proposed the use of operation research for the quantitative approach. The four basic characteristics are decision making focus, measurable criteria, quantitative model, and computers. The first is decision making focus. The primary focus of the quantitative approach is on problems or situations that require some direct action or decision on the part of management. Then the measurable criteria. The decision making process requires that decision maker select some alternative course of action, and the alternatives must be compared on the basis of measurable criteria. Then quantitative model. To assess the likely impact of each alternative on the stated criteria, a quantitative model of decision situation must be formulated, and in order to solve these problems, though the computers were being used. The second approach in the modern management is systems approach. The systems approach management provides the manager of an organization an integrated approach to management problems by considering all aspects of the organization, and organization in turn is treated as a system. Now, what is the key concept in the systems approach is that the system is set of interdependent parts which together form a unitary whole that performs some function. An organization is also a system which consists of four interdependent parts: task, structure, people, and technology. No part of the system is accurately analyzed and understood apart from the whole system. Alternatively, the whole system cannot be accurately perceived without understanding all its parts. A system can either be opened or closed. A system is open if it interacts with its environment. On the other hand, a system is closed if it doesn't interact with the environment. Each system, including organization, has its own boundaries which separate it from other systems in the environment. Every system has flows of information, material, and energy. These enter the system from the environment as input and leave the systems as outputs. The output of a system is always more than the combined output of its parts. This is called synergy. One important mechanism which enables system to adapt and adjust to the changing conditions of its environment and to exercise control over its operation is feedback. As the operation of the system proceeds, information is fed back to the concerned people so that work can be assessed and, if necessary, corrected. The last approach in the modern management is contingency approach. The contingency approach tries to integrate various schools of management thoughts. According to this approach, management principles and concepts of various schools have no general and universal applicability under all conditions. That is, there is no best way of doing things under all conditions. So, contingency approach is employed in the following areas like designing organization structure, resolving conflict, managing changes, motivational and leadership approaches, employees development and training programs, and several other areas of organizations and management. So what all we discussed in the today's session was the different levels of management: top management, middle management, and lower management. Then the different evolution of management techniques, that is early management approach and modern management approach. In the early management, we studied scientific management approach, administrative management approach, and bureaucratic management approach. In the modern management approach, we studied quantitative approach, and systems approach, and the contingency approach. So the today's lecture falls under the category of L2, as we are describing in detail about the gained knowledge about the that is management. So that's for the today's session. So thank you.